French President Emmanuel Macron says imposing tariffs on Chinese imports is not the solution to the European Union's trade deficit with Beijing. Writing in the Financial Times, Macron warned that weak productivity within the EU is a key factor behind China's growing trade surplus with the bloc, which currently exceeds $300 billion. He said working cooperatively with China is the best way to address the issue, adding that protectionist measures should be used only as a last resort. Erik Solheim is the former Norwegian Minister of International Development and also served as Under-Secretary General of the United Nations.
Look, whether this trade balance is too big at this moment can be discussed, but for sure it cannot just increase and increase. But it's not fair to criticize China because China's production has increased even more than China's export. So China is simply producing a lot more. China has such a super efficient industrial ecosystem. I see it every day on my travels in China. Everyone struggles to compete. Europe struggles to compete. United States struggles to compete. The Global South struggles to compete. So everyone needs to discuss how we can do better.
So what do you make of President Macron's comments? Because he's arguing that tariffs alone are not the answer. What's your take?
Tariffs, of course, will just make the European market very small, and European companies may win in that market, but they will be unable to compete in other markets. The way forward, paradoxically, is more China in Europe, not less. If Europe cooperate more with China, we will get more investments from China. We'll get the best technology in all green sectors, electric cars, electric batteries, solar panels, windmills. We get the best technology. Should have more Chinese investment in Europe. We should roll out the red carpet for all these investments. And then, of course, we should demand that technology is transferred and that we can learn from it, and maybe Europe in the future can do better.
So what you're saying is that the conversation really is all about EU competitiveness.
Absolutely. Europe at the moment is struggling with our competitiveness. Germany, the largest nation in Europe, has not had economic growth or improved productivity in the last 4 years, and we need to find a way out of that. That, in a way, we should look to China to learn from what they have done, and we can learn from that. China has a unique 5-year plan setting out the future destiny of China, now focusing on the two major revolutions, the digital and the green. Europe needs to be able to plan better. We need to have more better competition. I mean, the competition in the Chinese market is absolutely brutal. And to get that competition, well, we need to make the bureaucratic structures easier. And China has now a market 3 times the European market. So obviously Europe needs to integrate its market. Look, just as an example, China is now educating a lot more engineers and people in natural science than we do in Europe. And there's nothing wrong with journalists like you or political scientists like me, but we very rarely run businesses.
This is true. But look, President Macron, the president of Europe's second largest economy, the country that is about to take on the presidency of the G7 in 2026, he's making these comments about competitiveness, about France's relationship with China. What's your outlook for that, based on that, in the months ahead?
Let's take this as a positive start of a dialogue. There is a need for a dialogue between China and Europe. Europe needs to do its homework better. Unless we are competitive, we should not blame that on China or anyone else. We need to improve our own competitiveness, better research, better education, much faster decision-making in the public sector, integration of the market. We need to be competitive, but then we need a dialogue with China on 2 basic issues. How Europe can get a lot more investment from China. We can make that happen in real terms. We cannot just see Chinese companies exporting to Europe, but producing in Europe, making it in Europe. But then, of course, Europe must roll out the red carpet for these investments. And the other is to make sure that China also understands that China need to go even further to make the Chinese market open for European companies. Sometimes European companies feel that they are not treated fairly in the Chinese market. But on this basis, we need a dialogue, and then together we will be much stronger.